Hi, my name is Anna Bauböck. I'm the editor of the Global Green Guide, and joining me today for another conversation about all things sustainability, ESG and net zero is Katie Smart, General Counsel and Company Secretary at Tarmac. Katie, I'll hand over to you to introduce yourself.
Hi Anna, thank you for inviting me today. Really happy to be here. Yes, so Anna's introduced me. I'm the Company Secretary, General Counsel at Tarmac. We are a construction materials business. And I'm very excited about being able to talk today about sustainability, net zero, ESG. It's a huge passion of mine.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time, Katie. Really excited to hear what you've got to say. So my first question would be a very general one for you, just what you see as your role as a general counsel when it comes to actually things like achieving, for example, net zero targets.
It's an interesting question, actually, Anna, and I think a lot of lawyers are asking themselves the same question at the moment. It feels like some of us are sort of closer to this than others, and I think that's absolutely fine. If I think about what the role is of a lawyer generally, before we started looking at net zero, we're very much around making sure that we're following the regulatory landscape. We're making sure that all of our agreements are appropriately written to support our businesses. And I don't see that as any different when we look at things like net zero. I just think that what we're dealing with here is a much faster turnover and us having to be much more on the front line about it. So one of the big things that we need to make sure that we're doing as lawyers is really keeping on top of this changing legislation and that regulatory landscape. Things are coming in thick and fast, and we have to be absolutely on top of it. So one of the things we have to make sure we're doing is fully advising our businesses on all of those things that are coming, things that are already here, things that are already coming. It's not something that you can implement the night before a piece of legislation comes into place. These are policies that need to be really embedded into the structure of your business. So there's a huge part to play around that horizon scanning area. I think one of the things that we really need to look at is what we do as a group of people together. So not just within our businesses, but I do think that general counsels and company secretaries really need to be working together to try and find some consistent approaches to this. This is a great opportunity for us to actually have some consistency around how we advise our businesses, because there is an end goal here, and this end goal is bigger than all of us. So I see this a little bit like businesses have seen health and safety before, which is it's a humanitarian goal now. It's not a capitalist goal. It's moved beyond that. So I think as lawyers, we need to start having the forums such as you've set up here, where we're actually connecting with each other, talking and sharing best practice. So I think those are some of the really sort of key areas around legislation. There are other things that we absolutely can be involved in, not necessarily leading the way, but certainly supporting the business. I think one thing that's really prevalent at the moment for in-house lawyers in particular is around climate litigation. Now, we've seen the Shell case, we've seen all of these things coming at us. And I think as a community of legal advisors, what we want to be doing is making sure that we're not in any space where we would have litigation against us. So what we are trying to do is take a really holistic approach and advise businesses as to how they can do the right things and make sure that we are actually doing it. So I think climate litigation is going to become a really big part of what we do. And I don't think many businesses necessarily have a specific litigation management strategy in the past. Some may have needed that. But if we look around at society as it is now, and community groups, investors and so on, people are going to be pressuring us to get this right. So, litigation, huge part of what we need to be looking at. I think there are, again, the periphery areas that I was just mentioning. If I think about things like community engagement and relations, we really need to be making sure that we're supporting our business colleagues in having those conversations. Businesses can't do things on their own at the moment. They need to have the support of the wider community. So there's a big role for us in advising how they can go in and have those conversations and preempt issues. And so I think there's just a huge piece there that lawyers can deal with. I think the final piece, if I may, is more as a company secretary than as general counsel, because I think that people have different roles within their businesses. corporate governance reporting, it is huge, and this is the area that's changing the most, and I think is the area where we're having to really get on the front foot of it. So if we think about all the legislation that is increasing in terms of what we have to put in non-financial reporting in our statutory accounts, it's so significant now, and we're going to be reporting so much on sustainability and how we deal with things, that is a huge role for us. It's no longer a let's just write some things down that we've done. It's going to be audited and has to be demonstrated to have been done. And so for us, this is something we can really lead the way on. So I've left it to last, but I see it as a really significant part of our role.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Katie. So I think you've actually touched on some of this already, but maybe we're also keen to hear some sort of more concrete steps maybe that you are taking or have been taking in recent times to kind of help steer your company in the right direction, so to speak.
Absolutely. And if I go back a few years, we can all pinpoint what we've done just as part of our business as usual roles in advising on contracts and so on. And we've all been doing it. We haven't necessarily realized we've been doing it. I think the key change with all of this now is that it needs to be pulled under an umbrella. And so we have a sustainability legal committee. So clearly the business has responsibility for sustainability overall. I actually work for a UK company that is a very large subsidiary of a extremely large global PLC, CRH, and we all work in construction materials. So you can imagine this is a very significant area for us. So as a global legal team, we've just set up a committee on sustainability support. Part of that is bringing together all of that stuff that we've already done so that that consistency that I was talking about earlier happens. So it's about making sure that we support both from the centre and out in our subsidiaries where we're operating. So we can say there are many things that we're already doing. We're supporting research and development in entering into agreements with people that are trying to find ways to make our business much more sustainable and achieve net zero. So that's a given. That's already happening. We're supporting with investments into things and making sure that we've got the ability to create this new technology, which I don't know whether you know, Anna, but our business doesn't have the technology yet that exists to get to net zero in cement production. It's the nature of the business. So we are very much a part of the solution rather than the problem. So we're already doing this day to day, but I think what people really need to do is to go away and pull together a more coherent strategy, think about what their business is, what it is that they're dealing with, what they need to think about, because we're all going to be slightly different in our requirements, and have a think. I'd really advise people to have a think about what they're already doing, but largely they need to look at what legislation applies to them. I think I've said that, and this is what we're doing at the moment, is integrating it into our reporting structure. So all of the areas that I've touched on, we are pulling into a full strategy, but the fact that we've pulled together a legal committee goes to show you how incredibly important this actually is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so you're talking about sort of being part of the solution, not the problem. I think some may actually see ESG policies generally as a problem or as a risk. Do you see it as a risk, or do you in fact see it more as an opportunity, and why?
Complete opportunity, absolutely an opportunity. And I think anyone that sees it as a risk needs to sort of reframe the way they're thinking about it. I can understand why people would say that. It's a huge shift in how we deal with business as a society. I can see how that's going to be difficult for people to adapt to, but essentially we have to have sustainable businesses, otherwise where are we actually going? This is about our future, and we should always be thinking about how we can make sure we have a business in 10-20 years time. If I think of some more specific examples that relate to my industry, for example, we don't know whether I can't at the moment, there isn't a disruptor that any of us are aware of, but there can be disruptors to certain industries. And so if people aren't doing the right thing, a disruptor will come in and customers will walk into that business because that's where society wants to go. So there's an obvious reason for moving towards doing that. And And I think the great opportunity about it is I'd say in the last couple of years during the pandemic, people have really changed about how they view our roles within our businesses. I think corporations have actually become a bigger part of our lives, rather than, they could have become, we could have become detached from them, but we haven't. We've relied on them to be socially connected, to take care of ourselves and each other. And so to me, you're going to get the right people working for you if you're taking the right route, which is going to make you a more successful company at the end of the day. And that's what you need. You want the best people who really care passionately about what they're doing. And if you're a company that takes care of the environment, you take care of yourselves, you're taking care of everything. That is the right way to be. So I have some practical examples, but also some really, really strong philosophical points of view here, which is, it doesn't matter whether it's a risk, you've still got to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, really good point. So one last question for you, Katie, then. In your opinion, what are some of the key points to ensure sustainability, but also at the same time, maybe make sure that you're also contributing to economic success?
Yeah, and that's what it always comes down to. And I think sometimes as a legal function, it's harder to see that, because we're a little bit often detached from that sort of financial side of things. But I'm just thinking of an example today where we have there's a burger company, let's just call it that, who've put out a plant-based burger. Now, of course they need to do that. It's incredibly important economically for them, not just for sustainability, but there are an enormous amount of vegetarians and vegans around. Those people will have stopped buying product from there. Not only that, they probably will have stopped taking their families there. There's the pure good business reason for that. It's profit, and we can't ignore that. And again, if I think about the economic success of a business like ours, it's an aging workforce. And so you're only going to inspire those youngsters coming through if they feel you're doing the right thing for the planet, because that's a priority to them. So straight away, we need to be able to fill positions. There's some really basic reasons for doing it that are based on economics. And the other thing about it is, it must be cheaper to start reusing resources that we have. There must be cheaper ways of doing things. So there's a lot of argument around reusing products rather than expending all that money and taking new products out of the ground. And in essence, we've got the investors talking at us now, as we know, and if we're not doing what they need from us, they're going to go elsewhere. Pension funds are going to go elsewhere. So you're not going to get the investment you need to be able to develop your business. So even if it's not something that's a passion for people, they need to understand economically that it is absolutely the right way to go.
Yeah, amazing. Brilliant, Katie. Thank you so much. You've really had some really good insights there, very inspirational thoughts for us to take away. Do you have anything else you'd like to add? I think we've covered a lot, but yeah, go for it.
I think one last thing, Anna. I've been watching the news today, and there's a lot of things going on, and there's very little on the climate, considering we're a few weeks past COP26. So I would really, on a personal plea, just say to people, keep talking about it, keep it in the front line of everything. I think it's an incredibly important thing, and we have an opportunity to use our roles to influence and keep this in the headlines. Other than that, thank you so much for having me, Anna.
Thank you, Katie. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.